Welcome to the Agentic Edge. I'm Bernice Wessels, and in today's episode, Work Rewired, we will be looking at how AI, and specifically Agentic AI, is impacting not only the way in which we do our work, but also how we work together. I'm joined today by Clive Speelman, a workforce transformation strategist. Now, Clive, we're seeing major shifts in the way in which organizations are thinking about their teams, about their roles, about creativity in the light of agentic AI. So maybe let's start with the big picture. If I look at our PwC 2025 AI Job Barometer publication, it says that AI is actually increasing the value of people, even in those roles that we previously thought were automatable. What is your take on that?
Yeah, Bernice, and we certainly are seeing globally a shift from, and we get to witness this global shift in terms of how work is delivered and how value is created in organizations. I think there's an exponential shift around how we used to think about how value is created in organizations across industries, within different spaces as well. But more and more we are seeing that with agentic AI, that exponentially the value that can be created from work is also increasing. I think on the flip side, there was always this little bit of caution around, are organizations going to lose headcount? Are people going to lose their jobs? More and more, we are also seeing that agentic AI is being a multiplier of work and a multiplier of the value being added, not just a reduction of costs. And it's really just how do we see organizations reimagining how work is created and the value is created within the organizations as well.
No, exactly. And I think it's also pointing towards, traditionally we thought about AI actually increasing productivity, but it's also helping organizations actually adapt. So the AI is helping organizations sense change, predict the impact of that change, and really helping leaders respond quicker and smarter about it. So if I think about an example in the workforce planning space, where traditionally organizations used fixed annual plans for their staffing, for their supply chain, for their customer demand, now you can utilize AI to actually, on a real-time basis, look at data streams from your sales, from your employee behaviors and market trends. And you can predict the impact or predict whether you'd have workforce shortages, supply chain disruptions, and so forth. So it really shifts that. And the AI can also then help you understand the key actions you need to take in a advanced type of way.
Yeah, we see similar, examples within the retail space, and it's a good example that you reference now, where AI agents are becoming roles that sit outside of the traditional work structures and the way work is organized. So in the retail space, where you would typically have customer experience monitoring in one department, staffing in another department, real-time metrics related to how trends or buying happens within another department. Now we're seeing AI actually bringing these different areas that typically sat separately into one space, and where the data that can be consumed and the decision making that can come from the data is almost real time. So it's starting to challenge typical buying rhythms or typical seasonal rhythms that we see in some retail industries to become more real time, because data can be consumed around customer preferences, around their experiences and what they want, down to an individual level. So it's starting to challenge business models as well that's been almost entrenched typically in some industries.
No, it's amazing. If I think again on the AI Job Barometer, it also shows that the skills that are exposed to AI is actually evolving 66% quicker than other jobs or other skills that you're looking at. I mean, that's a big shift in how we need to think about how our workforce is learning and how the work is changing. Even in your example, it's a whole different work environment. So that brings me to my next question. If the work is changing so much and the workforce is changing so much, who is actually designing and orchestrating these workflows?
Yeah, and we do definitely see the emergence of new jobs in order to make sense of this new world. So as much as existing jobs are being augmented in terms of the way that they add value, new jobs are entering into the space with unique skill sets. But you can also imagine, Bernice, I'm sure many organizations are experiencing this as well, is that it's bringing more and more complexity within in the modern operating model. So previously, when we only spoke about agile ways of working or a gig workforce that came in and flexed where organizations needed to, this brings a whole new layer of complexity within the workspace. And there are these roles, like an agent, workforce orchestrator, or architect, that typically sounds like a technical role. It's not a systems role. It's a role that actually defines the way work and the way digital and human behavior collaborates in the future. So it's really about making sense of this space. And the reason I say it's not a technical role is because it's a leadership role that gets to craft the way work and value is added in organizations. So these are roles of people, and it's not necessarily a standalone job. It can be a role and a hat that someone wears in an organization because they are the existing formal job that they fulfill almost leans to drive this in organizations. So they make sense of how does work flow between different processes or ways of working, but what is the handover between a human being and an AI agent that is digital labor within the same structure, within the same value chain?
Yeah.
And this is things that people need to figure out, and it's not going to be a one size fits all. It's within the context of the organization. So more and more we're seeing the emergence of these roles, and they're defining the way work is being done, and it's a leadership role more than anything else. It's not a technical role.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it brings us to what we're seeing more and more in this space, and that's that AI is actually no longer just a tool that you use, but it's actually being embedded as part of the team.
Yeah.
So our PwC AI agent survey actually showed that AI is being provided tasks to do. It's being measured on the outcomes of that tasks, and it's being really integrated into the team structures.
Yes.
And that's a whole different ball game. And it allows organizations to actually double their workforce, double that knowledge base that they have, and transform the way they go to market, how quickly they go to market, and how they actually interact with their customers. But obviously, to do this, you need to actually integrate the AI within your teams, and you need to facilitate that mindset shift of working now with AI as part of a team. And I think as well, this brings us to, actually, you mentioned the leadership role within this and how important that is, because leaders now need to manage these hybrid teams, which are both bot and human. And that's a whole different team dynamic. And you need to have clarity about that. You need to have trust in those team dynamics and new KPIs that needs to be delivered on by both the human element and the bot element. I also think, and it's something I'm really passionate about, but the strategic workforce planning becomes quite complex in this space. You have to, on a continuous basis, actually model this hybrid workforce to understand how do you integrate your bot and your human workforce to deliver on your strategy. And then maybe the last point I'll make is actually the culture shift that needs to happen. If we think about our human workforce, they need to feel psychologically safe working side by side with AI. And therefore, where I think in the past we were very focused on the tech side of AI, and it's a tech issue, it is no longer just a tech issue. It is a leadership and it's an HR issue. So talking about HR, I have a question for you on the Chief People Officer and the transformation agenda. You talked earlier about the operating model, and I mean the traditional operating models were not designed for digital workforces. So what is that new mandate of the Chief People Officer?
Yeah. And it's not only on the Chief People Officer, I'm glad you brought this up, it's on the full executive suite in order to make this reality. In many organizations, it's still led from a people perspective, because I think more and more the people function is thinking about how work is created within the organizations to add value. but it's for every role at that executive table to lean into this and to make it happen. And the easiest way to almost articulate it from my perspective is a layered view. So at the bottom, organizations do need the technology in order to leverage off this opportunity. I mean, it doesn't make sense talking about agentic workforce if you don't have agentic AI embedded in your technology suite. So that is a basis, and organizations will be able to adopt these new ways of working at the pace of which that realities can come into place. Whether it's large scale or whether it is use case specific, they need to lean in to be able to build that on top of it. Then the layer on top of that is looking at it from three perspectives: work, workforce, and the worker. And each of these represents ways that you can make sense of the agentic workforce. And I'll touch on each of that just now. And then right on top is the culture, creating a safe space for organizations and for employees to be able to take opportunity of the value that can be created. I mean, back in the day when RPA became a popular thing, I think many organizations thought, sure, people are going to come with use cases to optimize the way I work because it's just so intuitive or just like a no-brainer. But still, employees need to feel the safe space to be able to surface opportunities, but at the same time, that there's less fear of job loss or job redundancy because of that. But that organizations help these employees recreate how they add value in this new world. So coming back to those three pieces around work, workforce, and the worker, from a work perspective, so organizations can tap into how processes and org structures are represented as an articulation of how work and value is created in a particular structure. So we do help organizations look at the org structures, and then they put the digital labor in the structure as well as the human labor. So when people look at it, they realize, oh, I need to work with this AI agent to add value. But managers also and leaders also have a view of their full work structure, so they can say, okay, I need to help my teams create value by connecting AI agents and human labor in order to create value. So more and more that is shifting from a work perspective. Then in the workforce space, I mean, how you recognize performance, how you recognize skills, thinking about career pathing and what that looks like. Because if you think about it, the AI agent comes in, typically will start taking over entry-level work or adding value at that level. Graduates that used to come into this space used to add and grow through the organization by doing that entry-level work, building the skill to be able to lead and supervise others. Now the expectation is that graduates of the future need to come in and add value at the supervisory level from the outset. So how do organizations prepare graduates for this? How do they collaborate with educational institutions in order to prepare graduates as well? So that's the complexity that's starting to enter in the workforce space. And then from a worker perspective, what's the profile of the human of the future in the work contents? The skills they need, the behaviors that they have, that they display, the culture that they want to be able to thrive in. And that further speaks to a culture of collaboration and working together holistically. So the whole talent model and the way that chief people officers or chief executive officers think about talent needs to shift. And that the way talent is managed is no longer people function led, it's also tech enabled. So that's the chief people officer, the CIO sitting together to think about, sure, if we had to acquire talent, are we going to acquire a bot or we are going to acquire a human being? And that decision has to be made regularly throughout the workforce life cycle to add value. So organizations are figuring it out. We are helping them still make sense of this, but everyone will continuously learn as this path continues.
Sure. Thanks, Clive.
A mouthful.
That's, I mean, it's quite a lot of insightful things and a lot of food for thought, I think, especially for our listeners. But thank you. I think this was a very rich conversation. And I think it is very clear to executive leaders that, you know, they need to rethink the way in which AI is impacting teams, roles, and even leadership itself. And the organizations that take advantage of this will really see another level of performance, creativity, and just, you know, team dynamics within the organizations. Any final words from yourself?
I guess just in summary, from my perspective, it's no longer science fiction. It is a strategic reality. And organizations are making sense of it, but it is here and it is happening. So more and more gone are the days that this is a conceptual. It's a strategic lever that organizations can pull to augment their workforce to add value and achieve on the strategic.
Thank you, Clive, and thank you to all our listeners for joining the final episode in Agentic Edge.